Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today we're going to look at the key discussions of is it normal for, such as a party goer or group, to dump Noah's body on the highway? Is that a normal outcome? If people were really responsible, would they honestly do something like that, which is so obvious and stands out? I'll be giving my deep thoughts today, so don't go anywhere. And also along the theme of, is it normal for key people within a case, witnesses, people of interest, those that stick their foot into the door, even though they don't really play a role in the case, but still get involved? Any threats verbally online, is it normal for that to happen in a case such as a true crime one, or just an open active investigation, which has not been quite defined just yet? That's everything for today. Don't go anywhere. Make sure to stick around till the end. These are my raw thoughts, no notes whatsoever. You can let me know what you think, though, in the live chat if you are currently watching the live premiere. The chat will be on the right-hand side of the screen. And for those that don't make it, if you want to share your afterthoughts or you're watching on catch-up, let me know everything in your mind down below under the video in the comment section, and I can respond back to. You'll also find a pinned comment down below by me with additional links if you do want to support this channel. And as a little heads up, randomly, if people didn't know, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to super chats, super stickers, whilst they can be given as a form of support during a live premiere like these or a live stream, they can also be sent, given to people, to channels in the comment section. So it means no one misses out. On a normal recorded video, not live, just a normal uploaded video, you can still show support because there is that little symbol down below under the video. The only thing which you can gift only in live streams or live premieres is the gifted membership. Now, people individually can become a member on this channel whenever, wherever, because the button will always be there saying join. But if you want to gift memberships to a handful of people at random, because that's how YouTube does it, it can only be done during a live stream or a live premiere when there's an audience present, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Just in case people were wondering why they can't do it here, but they can do it there, I just wanted to clear things up. Now, that aside, if you're just simply interested in the videos and catching up, well, top right corner of the screen where the I symbol is up there, you'll be able to find it. You click on it, you'll find a full playlist to my videos and as well the video that I did last night and maybe the one before. Now, that video by Madison Rawlings, but I'm not quite in the focus or in the mood to do that just yet. I'll do that tomorrow. I wanted to do a loose video right now because it's been very heavy and very full on recently with notes and pages and what other people had to say. Now it's my time to say, okay? In case people are wondering, where's the conclusions or where's the opinions? Well, you got it right now. So feel free to listen in as I go along. So which area do we look at first? The most important one, the body being found at the highway. Don't get this mixed up with the video that I did some weeks ago where I was going really deep into the highway situation, the reasoning behind it. This is a bit more of a refined one and adding on because there was a comment in recent time where people were questioning with their own opinion and thoughts of if there was honestly any foul play. Wouldn't it be so silly for partygoers and people to dump a body on the highway? And the counterpoints were an attempt to make it look like something else, right? Do I agree with that? To an extent. But I'll also explain as to why no burying of the body took place, because that'll be worse off for everyone, those involved, and those as the victims or the victims' friends and family members. So, let's make it as short as possible, if so. So, theory, a scenario, a situation. Careful with the language and wording so people don't misunderstand it. In the situation based on a theory that a partygoer or more than one were responsible for the death, the murder of Noah Presgrove, premeditated or not, maybe a snap moment still happened in that basis, and then the intent to move the body. Would that be considered desecration? It's not come up yet because it's not being treated that way in the case, but would there be a desecration charge? I mean, when it comes to that term, it's an umbrella term where you may get rid of a body, dispose it, bury it, or unearth a body, move it, rebury, things like that, or bury a body and then decide, no, I'll bury it elsewhere after and relocate. And then the other form of desecration is outright destroying the body, destroying the evidence on the body and stuff like that, burning, breaking down, intense heat required. There was an obsession with that area, specifically in the Dylan Rounds case, never came to light though. Desecration was true though in terms of the burying of the body, which was later found, a lot later found, but that charge was dropped on Brenner, the murderer, because of the plea deal, things being dropped or reduced, but it was an original official charge on Brenner for what he's done. But that involved Dylan's body being buried in the ground, underground. So when it comes to Noah Presgrove, possibly killed, possibly picked up, moved about, washed down in between, a form of cleaning off any evidence, if that's really true, and then disposing on the highway, would any of that be considered desecration? Not from what I'm aware of. Might be separate individual charges of tampering with evidence, trying to get rid of it, clean up after yourself, manipulating the scene, the true scene. That could have its own charges. I personally don't think there was desecration involved here, but if there's any other definitions by that term, you can let me know down below if you want to add any corrections or alternatives. But like with the Dylan Rounds case, buried in the ground, moved about, supposedly. No, Presgrove, never buried. Okay? So, okay, we've got that out the way, just a little term I wanted to add in. The mindset of a group of people or a person possibly responsible, do they all think, or does the one person come up with the idea, oh yeah, let's just put him on the highway where anyone and everyone will see the body at some point during the day when passing by, which will ultimately lead to the investigation opening up and a case being started and police then questioning and interrogating people. There are two factors possibly to highlight the sheer stupidity of leaving a dead body out in the open for anyone to come across and see, which normally you think makes it harder on yourself, because the quicker things get underway, the more fresh it is, the more likely it could trace back to yourself. That's one possibility. You can have incriminating yourself by leaving it out there. It's like if you was to burgle a store, but you knew there was a CCTV camera and it was recording you, and you decided to take your balaclava off when you were leaving and look up at the camera and then put the mask back on and run away. You're just putting yourself out there for being questioned and possibly, in an obvious situation like that, targeted immediately and questioned. But is there a level of invincibility where people feel like they can do whatever, whenever, wherever, and may get a slap on the wrist because they've done stuff in the past? Nothing bad happened there, so why should it happen now? Well, if it's true that some have a history in the past with bad actions, and if there was any other deaths and they got away, well, now, would it be any different? Makes you think, doesn't it? Unless people get more than what they bargained for, where this case actually gets more attention and traction than back then, and it does backfire for them long term. You never know. That's one way of looking at it. But it's just when I look back to the Dylan Rounds case, the fact that James Brenner, the murderer at the time, living on site at the Grainshed property, the same place where Dylan was killed, murdered by Brenner himself, 28th May 2022. And days later, June 2nd, 2022, police there, family there. The police near to the Grainshed, the murder scene, never taped off, never cornered off. And Brenner walked into that shed, got into that vehicle, the grain truck parked there by Dylan, days before, just before he died on the day of the 28th, parking it in there. Brenner got in it, what would you call it, tampered, not really tampered because that's after, but contaminated possible key evidence, reversed or drove the vehicle out, went back into the shed so there was more space, bag items up, whatever it might be, possible key evidence in the moment, and the police sat back and did nothing. At the time, you got a person of interest, an individual last to come across Dylan, but maybe it wasn't as made clear at the time because it was in the very early days and Brenner was lying about when he last saw Dylan. It was like 6 months ago, but it was a lie in the end. It's easier to look back now and reflect and be more critical, but still, at the time, you got a person of interest and you got a last known spot location where Dylan was at, and then whatever happened after that went quiet, went dark, went dodgy. And you got a police presence there at the scene who doesn't even tape it off. So then Brenner is allowed to walk about, and anyone else if they wish to do so. But it was Brenner because he's the one that didn't respect the scenario, the situation, because he's obviously responsible. But in a normal person's mind, if they were caught up in some trouble, they wouldn't just outright walk onto the scene and start driving things and moving stuff about, bagging items up in trash bags and then taking them away and disposing of them afterwards on the same day or a day later, whilst the police are there at the scene and they just sit back. Most people would be very cautious and think, well, I can't be doing it now. I'll be literally caught in the act, yet Brenner had no shame in doing it. Is it because he felt confident and cocky, felt invincible, that police couldn't touch him, that Brenner knew that there was that arrest warrant on the 2021 aggravated assault, I think that was in Montello with a lawn chair, and it might have been Kevin Bibbins, a 69 or 70-year-old or so, but nevertheless, aggravated assault pending from 2021 onwards, comes 2022, police presence, and that's not even the first thing that the police do with Brenner when it should have been. If it was done in 2021, Dylan would have had a chance to live a bit longer at least. But didn't happen. The only reason why Brenner was taken in the first place was because of unrelated gun charges. No charges, no trouble, not being told off, not being apprehended for Brenner going on site at the scene to move stuff about and take possible evidence away. Oh, that's perfectly okay to do so. If the police are that incompetent, maybe Brenner knows about it. He did at the time, so he did what he did because he knew he could get away with it. So if that's just down to incompetence, and then you've got the Noah Presgrove case, which is down to incompetence but more so possible corruption, is going to be 100 times worse. And if certain individuals who may be caught up in this case and responsible for disposing of the body on the highway, if they've done bad things in the past and got away with it, they might think, well, we can do it again and get away with it. That's a factor of looking at it. The second factor to understand why anyone in their right mind would think putting a body on a highway is a good idea when it's open to all elements and people passing by is to stage a hit and run. Okay, ruled out somewhat early on, but at this moment, what else has it led to? Nothing. Treated as suspicious or unknown death. Just like the unknown outcome of how a 7-year-old girl fell into the water from the boat with the Warwicker situation back in 2020 with Caleb Newton, Jack Newton's father. Caleb Newton operating the boat at the time. You know, not much follow-up after that. So you look forwards to present time onwards with Noah Presgrove on a highway, body dumped or spread out. Well, Caden Pressey, when he saw it kind of raw at the time before it was moved after and adjusted, on the side, neck twisted, possibly because of, broken neck and everything, very limp and floppy, it happens. Arms and legs sprawled out. Sprawled out as if a person's just been thrown, dumped onto the ground. Not just neatly placed on the ground, gently placed down and then spread out, adjusted the limbs like a mannequin. I guess not. Would he have been dumped or was he placed? Maybe that could be a small little poll if people want to vote right now, whether do it now or on the channel page. Do you think Noah Presgrove was dumped on the highway or placed on the highway? And when I say placed, I mean positioned. Placed down gently and then manipulated with the joints and the body. I mean, normally in a hit and run, would they even be found on the side of a highway? I guess not. Maybe in the middle of the road or a bit closer to the road at least. Unless they did get clipped from an angle which caused them to fly or ping off in a like ricochet in a certain direction. But with enough force behind it, you'd probably be on the grass verge or within the bushes or the ditch on the ground. You know, we see the hard shoulder, but past that, going onto the vegetation and land, it dips down into a ditch. So if he was found in a ditch, I don't know, that could be another way of looking at it. Or in the middle of the road, well, yes, it does run the risk of more traffic in the future running over the body. It could appear as more of a hit and run. Now, when it comes to Jack Newton, who's a bit of a cheerleader with the whole hit and run situation, and even Stevie Howard, the one thing that stood out to me was the Partners in True Crime interview where Jack Newton changed the story up and said Noah only had one shoe on. As for which one, the Hey Dude one or his own Adidas one, I can't remember if that was actually mentioned, but Jack said only one shoe on Noah's body. Now, the autopsy reports, the news reports, and even Caden Pressey, and even some others before and after the manipulation of the shorts, was wearing mismatched shoes. It's only Jack that suddenly come out with one shoe on Noah. Why would Jack change it up when he knows in the autopsy report and other reports officially states that Noah was wearing shoes? Not just one, but two shoes. Not exactly a pair because they're two separate mismatched shoes, but call it a pair of mismatched shoes, left and right foot. Why would Jack go against that? He's really digging himself into a hole. That's a really silly move, especially if it's been officially stated and it's been mentioned in the autopsy, pair of mismatched shoes which were on Noah's body. Why would Jack go against that when people are aware, supposedly as a fact, that Noah was wearing mismatched shoes? That's the one of the biggest mistakes I think that Jack made. But when people were talking about a hit and run earlier on in the case, they were saying how the body would have to be in a certain position and more so on the road and not by the side on the hard shoulder for it to look more like a hit and run. And of course, the obvious injuries sustained would have to be a bit different and more damage down below when you get hit normally. That would have to be present. But also any clothing such as shoes. People said how normally if it's a hit and run or hit by a vehicle and then whatever happens after that, the shoes can go flying off, or maybe one of them can if one doesn't. Now, did Jack think, oh, maybe I'll take that on board, so the next time I tell my story, I'll say that Noah only had one shoe on, because then that implies the other shoe was flung off. Now, Jack didn't say whether that other shoe was missing or not. He just said Noah was only wearing one shoe. And if you're hearing that story for the very first time, you could then think, well, the other shoe was found anyway, the mismatched one. Oh, so it must have been on the road or nearby, which could imply it was shot off, flung off in the process of a hit and run. It's like you got a blueprint, the designs behind what you want it to be, but what's on paper isn't the actual reality of what you want it to be. And you get different realities, like made up reality and what's really going on, and what's really going on could be on paper. What you want it to be isn't, so you try and make adjustments along the way. Now, you'd think you'd be doing it in the moment. Oh, we'll just place them on the highway. That's the best thing because we've got different factors which can play into mind. Factor one being invincible, untouchable, doesn't really matter how reckless we are, we can get away with stuff. That's one possibility. And factor number two, if we can try and stage it as something else, we can form a bit of a diversion tactic. And granted, whilst that didn't really happen because the hit and run was squashed really early on, ask yourself, has it led to any other development since? People may be strongly opinionated and say murder, premeditated or not, but has it officially been labelled as that or a homicide? It hasn't, has it? And whilst in 2023, Highway Patrol treating it as some kind of traffic homicide, no follow-up on that either. So maybe indirectly, based on the theory, partygoers dump body on highway. Sounds ridiculous, sounds obvious. Try and stage it as something which it's not. Then it gets ruled out by police, but there isn't a follow-up after that. Seems like a win-win for people on the wrong side, doesn't it? Now, let me add on with my realistic thought, and this is based off extensive experience. So, in other situations, based off the Stevie Howard statement, oh, if us parents are so bad, and if we were responsible, we would have done a better job at disposing of Noah's body, and it's a fact that nobody would have found him. That's worrying. You shouldn't be saying that, whether you call it a threat or foreshadowing what could have happened or what could happen in the future. Or it's like a little hint as to we're experienced, we're good at what we do because we've done it in the past with other people that have died, and that's why you've never found them. That's how you can interpret it from that way. But the reason, if it's based off foul play, if it's to do with partygoers or extended people, extended family being responsible, if any of them were to bury Noah's body in the ground on their property, or obviously much further afar, it doesn't matter. Burying a body would be worse for everyone in this case. And you might think, how's that even possible? Well, let me explain. You bury a body, where is Noah? Until he's found, it's the unknown, the uncertainty. That original narrative of Noah left the house at 3:30 or the party, not to be seen again, missing, people searching about for him, supposedly, as some claims have been made. Whether that's true or not, it fits that narrative. So he used to bury Noah's body after the death of him, the murder, bury him wherever. The last known thing, oh, Noah wandered off into the dark, never to be seen again. Oh, it was his own choice to walk away, and then something unexpected happened to him. He's now missing 411. Maybe not quite like that, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of uncertainty. Could it allow people to breathe, and those dodgy ones within to breathe, get the story straight, clean up after themselves, be more organized? Yeah, but it's the long-term factor. In a way, if you could be a criminal, you do bad, or you're a murderer, you kill someone, you want to be able to get away with it, of course, so you can move on with life or move on with the bad stuff that you're doing. But you'd like things to be resolved and, got out of the way quick, if at the same time you could get away with it. So like if somehow you could take someone out and then for the body to be found early on and the investigation to commence quick, but for it to be closed and not resolved, and then it's just forgotten. Then it happens again and again. It allows a bad person to keep on doing things, but also not have to have that conscience, that weight on the shoulders of what they've done in the past. Will it catch up on them? If it can be resolved early on, out of the way, and they can get away with it too, then they can just move on with their mind. Now, sometimes we have killers, they don't worry, they don't think about the past or the consequences, or if it's going to catch up with them, they just keep moving forward. But not everyone's like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it would be worse for some people within the situation of burying a body, such as burying Noah. You bury Noah, last known story of, last seen here, last heard of there, now missing, right? A buried body equals the uncertainty of what's happened to Noah, which drags out everything, ultimately leading to a missing person case. Because if you can't find Noah, but he was last seen wandering off, then it'll be treated as a missing person case. A missing person case equals heavy resources used, normally, a variety of resources used which normally wouldn't be used, as in finding Noah's body on a highway, right? You might use cadaver dogs, ATVs, side-by-sides, ground penetrating radar if there was belief that he's been buried, full spectral drones to check for soil disturbance, horseback maybe, and much more. Grid searches, public searches, missing person posters. And, the longer it goes on for, the worse it would be for those responsible, because it will be looming, hanging over their heads forever how long the case goes on for in a missing person case. And whilst it can go cold, there have been cases out there which haven't, and have gone on and on and on. Dylan Brown's case, first treated as a missing person case, originally reported as a missing person by the parents, Candice Cooley, the mother. And whilst I didn't know it at the time, Dylan was killed and buried on the spot, 28th onwards. Whether he was moved again and then buried elsewhere, who knows, but definitely buried into the ground, desecration. So a form of killing someone, then burying them, and then the unknown from the family and anyone else in between, treating as a missing person, because they were last seen, last heard there, but no contact made afterwards. Missing person, bring in all the right resources as much as possible, get a lot of awareness, a lot of equipment, and go from there. And if it's not resolved anytime soon, but there's a lot of energy behind it, it'll just go on and on and on. So the people responsible are like, oh, it keeps on going. Is it safe yet? Can we move on? No, you can't want it out the way. That's why putting it on the highway, you can't get out of the way. You put yourself in the firing line for possibly being questioned and everything, but if you're able to pull it off, you could get lucky. But if you've got assistance from corrupt people as well, or incompetent humans out there, it can make your life a lot easier, especially if you're on the dark side. I'm just giving you all the different outcomes, okay? So what happens then with all the resources? Well, using it all over the place, they may unearth it eventually, or they may unearth other bad things, you never know. And, if it's a missing person case, they might be more likely to trace back to where he was last seen, last heard from, and actually search the area. I'm not saying it's a guarantee in this specific case, but I'm just saying, like, based off tracing people's steps, you might be more likely to do that with a missing person case, because there's a lot more uncertainty. You don't know if the person's dead or alive. You don't know where they are. You don't know if they are buried, or if they just walked off, or if they've been kidnapped. There's so many more possibilities and outcomes. It becomes a lot more deeper and resource hungry, and a lot more people are required to assist and help. And then if the body is found, and then probably going to be treated as a criminal case, investigation, possible homicide, desecration, and all of that, and it brings in the typical usual resources that come on in. So longer term, a lot more's done, a lot more focus, a lot more time spent, and the higher the chances of tracing the steps back of where he was last seen, and maybe a bit more intensive focus and interviews of the partygoers possibly. And even the family as well, they would be worse off, because whilst they haven't got closure and the justice yet for Noah, if Noah was seen as a missing person, you'd have the emotional roller coaster ride of, is he alive? Is he not? Having that hope. And then eventually, if the truth does come out and the body was found buried, that's a completely new wave of negativity. So it's a lot more draining that for the victim, the victim's families, victim friends, and for the perpetrators, because they've got it looming over their head for as long as it goes on for. So it does no one any favours when it comes to burying a body. It makes everything a lot worse and more intense, and possibly more dragged out. Now, and tracing back to the house and possible searches, more could have been retrieved. That's just my thoughts, at least. Now, if there's any additional points I need to refer back to, I can do, but just briefly go over to the threats scenario. Is it normal to threaten people? Normally not. I mean, in a joking way, as you might have seen at the party, I'm going to slap you or that will kill you. It's not to be taken too seriously in the moment, but more so by people, whether it be party goers, some who have done so, or brothers, sisters, parents beyond, who may have not been present at the party but have still spoken up online. We've seen it with Brooke Bounce-Carter, we've seen it with Stevie Howard, we've seen it with, some say Jack Newton, Kane Presley, I just wanted to ask you before I get upset. People saw that as a threat in a way. I didn't, but other people do. Colton, Newton as well, threatening language. A certain theme and pattern going about, isn't there? Oh, and Carter Combs as well with her threatening text. I'm going to beat the beep out of you. So, as a counterpoint, you can say in defense, people like that will come up with threatening language because it's not truly meant. It's just because of months and months of all this going on, emotions running high, tense situations, possibly being targeted and attacked as well. Just like how in recent times, supposedly, where some of Noah Presgrove's family members have been questioned or attacked by hurtful comments out there, and they're going to reach a bit of a breaking point, and with the anniversary coming up, really tense at the moment, an emotional response, but heat of the moment. So if the Presgrove family can say what they say and what they think about certain people, and it's boiled over, then maybe you could be more likely to understand why some within the case on the opposite side who have been questioned a lot and maybe being blamed with strong, bold words by the general public, it gets to them, so they snap and fight back with words, a verbal exchange of either insults or more so threats. Obviously, it's not the right way to go because it either makes yourself look more guilty than what you are, or if you're truly innocent, you're kind of putting yourself in a hole where you're going to be questioned even more and it's going to get worse. So people have to be able to control themselves, but it can be hard to do so, especially when you're in the firing line, when you're directly involved in the case. But what about the exception? A couple of people that use threatening or insulting language, who put their foot in the door, who weren't even a part of the party or the death of Noah, but they decide to get involved and say what they've got to say, passing on information from what they've been told by Jack. You know, like the Sarah Longs, the Stevie Howards, the Brooke Bounce-Carter, maybe at times. Really, at the end of the day, I don't know why you need these third-party representatives speaking. Why can't Jack just say it all then? Or Carter Combs, instead of having these spokespeople to do it and pass it on. You want to hear it firsthand from the horse's mouth. Now, Brooke Bounce-Carter, Sarah Long, Stevie Howard may speak up at times to defend their family or friends or loved ones. I understand that. But maybe some talk more as if they know more or more of an expert, or they've heard more but didn't actually see it firsthand. And even when countering Caden Pressey, it's basically a group of people that weren't even there telling Caden what's right and what's wrong when Caden was actually there as a witness. They're not really in a position to do so. So some people may have interjected, put themselves into the case when it wasn't needed or warranted. You can still stick up for loved ones and defend them. But then when you put your foot in the door and you start speaking a lot and a lot more, then you also start using the insults and threatening language, there's really no need for that. If you're one of the party goers and all the blame is put onto you, you know, by the general public, and there's, you know, maybe you feel harassed, maybe you feel attacked, you might break, it might get too much, and you might snap and say the wrong thing to people, and then that gives them ammunition to use against you. It's unfortunate. It's harder to control yourself like that. If you're a person that's not even a part of the case and you're not even a witness either, but you still put your foot in the door and then start speaking up with threats and language, that's very unnecessary and that's their own fault. And you can't be using the excuse of, oh, it's an emotional time because you weren't there. You're not connected to Noah exactly. Okay, some people can know Noah and maybe to an extent be friends, but you weren't there at the party to see it happen. You weren't there at the highway to see it happen or whatever going on. So they're not really in a position to be talking, and let alone giving out threats, really not necessary. So that's what I think about it now. That's not me saying that I support the people that are threatening, because it's just not a good thing. But still, what I'm trying to put in there is that, with the exception of some party goers, I mean, like, what is it, Colton Newton, older brother to Jack Newton. Was Colton ever at the party? Yes, no? If not, why the hell was he using threatening language to someone that was just asking Stephanie Millan questions? Why does Colton care so much about Stephanie? Were they together at the time? Why the defensiveness? Interesting. You know, if you're not the party goer, you weren't there, then why the defensiveness? because you know something else. You're protecting someone you like, protecting someone you know who could be responsible. I don't think it's a level of denial. I mean, do you think there's anyone who is on the dark side who's just simply in denial? You can say, like, oh, that person's responsible, that person's covering for the other person. But is there anyone who's just simply in denial because they don't want to admit the dark truth of who could be responsible based on that situation? Let me know your thoughts down below. But I just feel like the Brooke Bounce-Carter, that threat, that warning, whatever you want to call it, Brooke Bounce-Carter cleared it up and said it actually dates back many months ago. Another person added on saying it came about 19th of May 2024. So it's somewhat old, but the reactions by people in recent times seeing it thought it was brand new. Not just me, but others. And those that shared it did not give context on the Army page, which is very unfortunate. But as I said, Brooke Bounce-Carter had the opportunity to speak up and to clear the air, and that's what she did. But the act of minimization did take place. So this is the thing. The act of threatening language used by people who weren't even there at the party, by people who've put their foot into the door, made it about them, or involved themselves into the case when it wasn't necessary, then starts fighting back verbally online when it's not exactly warranted or needed, because there are more focused people within the case that are getting more flack than you are, yet you are using it as an excuse to excuse your own actions and threatening language. It just seems a little bit unfair in a way, and reckless too. But as well, threats can be said in the heat of the moment. Specific threats are more questionable, like it's been pre-planned, thought out on the spot. If a person came up to you and said, I'm going to slap the beep out of you, I'm going to make you dizzy, I'm going to spin you around real fast, people could say, oh, that's a bit of a threat, why are you saying that to me? Heat of the moment, whatever's going on. But if a person says something like, I'm going to slap the beep out of you, and I'm sure the police will be interested to know what's on your computer, all those files, naughty, naughty. It's like foreshadowing a threat. Why so specific? Why did you give that example exactly? Do you know more than what's really going on? That's what Brooke Bounce-Carter said. Now, yeah, it could be in the past. Doesn't matter. A threat is a threat, and it was documented. Now, Brooke said, oh, it was resolved because apologised and the family were okay with it. The family are easy to forgive someone who gives out such a damning threat, but the family aren't as forgiving towards Justin Roy, who's just overly passionate about the case and sometimes may speak up more than what he should do. That's weird, isn't it? That's really weird. Well, anyway, even if it was resolved and apologies were made and it was exchanged and it's in the past, has it happened since? Not from the looks of it. But you never know. There's always can be twists and turns around a corner. But to refer back to a specific threat, the more specific a threat is, the more likely it was planned out, thought out, before or in the moment. Either because they want to try and inflict as much damage and fear as possible to shoo someone away. Maybe it's like a bluff, but still make it sound as bad as possible to scare people off from getting to the truth, which is corrupt in its own way, or a specific threat because that person knows exactly what's going on in the background. So when Brooke Bounce-Carter said, you keep pushing and pushing Stevie Howard, and if she loses everything, she's going to take other people down with her. Brooke Bounce-Carter saying how, you know, we've got stuff on Noah Presgrove or Noah Presgrove's family. I'm sure the family doesn't want it to be released or talked about. That sounds very specific, doesn't it? It's not just a threat of, you keep pushing, we'll fight back. No, Brooke Bounce-Carter said, you keep pushing, Mama Bear will fight back against with her cubs. She'll fight back, and we've also got stuff on you, which could be released. I'm sure you don't want that to be released. That follow-up threat on top of a pre-existing threat, very specific. Is there any truth behind it? Okay, it may have been an apology in the past, and it might be old news now, But is there any truth to it? Does Brooke Bounds Carter know something about Noah Presgrove or know something about the Presgrove family? Any dirt on them? And what is it exactly about? What doesn't help is the wave of over-passionate, over-emotional humans in the name of Noah Presgrove that will just jump on in and say, oh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You know, none of it warrants the death of Noah. To understand everything, you need to understand everything. You push it aside, you're not going to understand. There could be a key component or a key element somewhere behind this friction and tension and specific threats, old or new. No harm in knowing. You know, the video that was done recently about blackmail, question mark, someone like Lady Dalton, who really did not understand my video, was complaining about that type of stuff, saying, that never happened. You're such an idiot. You know, you're such a problem for distributing misinformation, Warlike Ref. We'll get to Lady Dalton in a second or so, because it follows on with these, you know, this talk of Brooke Bounds Carter, okay? But yeah, any truth to what Brooke Bounds said at the time about there's darkness on the family or Noah and family members wouldn't want it to be released. How bad is it really? And what is it really? And if Brooke Bounds Carter was to say, oh, well, I just made it up. Why did you make it up? Why were you so specific? Was it planned out? Was it pre-thought of? Or is it in the moment? It seems like there's a bit of depth to it. Now, at the end of the day, maybe it's not negative stuff on Noah. If it's negative stuff on the family, as people say, skeletons in the closet, even though Lady Dalton doesn't appreciate skeletons and all that, it shouldn't matter and it shouldn't be released and it shouldn't be aired. Oh, yeah, we just keep it all quiet. I mean, if people reach out for help and the case gets put on a public scale and stuff, provided it doesn't implicate the case, but its key components in understanding it should be revealed. So you get the full picture, fill in the jigsaw, the missing puzzle pieces, whether it links to the cause of why Noah was targeted and why he ended up dying, because of negative stuff under his name, which Brooke Bounds knows or Stevie Howard knows, or if it's reluctancy by family members or how they go about stuff, their mindsets, or even if they want to push, but their attitudes are slightly different towards those some partygoers or family members because they want justice, but at the same time, they don't want something to be released. There's no harm in knowing. It might not be anything at the end of the day. That's good in itself. It's probably a win-win for most. But you also get that closure and you can debunk stuff too. But all these threats, left, right and centre, what would you say, 90, 85 to 90% of threats are from a certain side. Those within the case, partygoers, or those connected to the partygoers by blood or close-knit friends. Says a lot, doesn't it? Now, has anyone seen any threatening language from the Noah Presgrove family? You can leave it down below, and anyone else in between. To add on, we just brief focus on Lady Dalton. This is just a human who watches my videos, can't seem to get enough of them, keeps coming back. Obviously it wouldn't be a problem, but they seem to be complaining and a bit negative as well. So with the Brooke Bounds Carter video that I did, and in between, I guess, to do with Robin Smith, Ashley Chadwick, with what's been said on Facebook and that TikTok video, Lady Dalton ended up saying, Raf, you know, whatever you're saying, Robin said the same thing, you know, you're misinformation, it's a shame, you're an idiot. Why did you not include it in your video? Why did you not include in the video that Robin Smith was welcoming of issuing a refund on that person that donated money in the first place? If you watched my video, you would know that I mentioned it, I acknowledged it, and furthermore, I showed it in the video on screen. I can say, Lady Dalton, with absolute ironclad certainty and confidence, And I will bet this, and I'll say this, I'll swear this, not by the sword, but by the nipples that warlike wrath in the name of we the people. They're not even showing anymore. I wonder why. Because they disappear when they're in the presence of such an egocentric, impetuous human. Okay? When other people come about, good individuals, the nips show. They will protrude right through like a spear, piercing into revealing the truth. Unfortunately, we don't need to pierce through the truth because it's pretty self-explanatory, already documented, already in open view, right? But when it comes to Lady Dalton, that's her proper name, whatever. I mean, you look at Lady Dalton, teeth all on show. That's not an insult, just an observation. Don't like it, keep your mouth shut in terms of profile picture. That's all. Anyway, I did show it in my video, okay? It's self-explanatory. I showed everything in the video. I showed reasoning ability, different perspectives, different outcomes. It's as simple as that. I don't know what Lady Dalton is looking at or watching, but clearly not my videos and not for the full length of time, because if you watched it all, you would understand. Lady Dalton did go through a phase of typing in capital letters like a shouty person, sexual frustration, tension, disgruntled, who knows? I've seen it in the past with other humans. Now, maybe Lady Dalton has been a bit of a naughty individual because what they actually want me to do is read the comments out in a shouty tone, but not worth it, really, because we focus more on a case of what we've been looking at today. I just wanted to add this on in brief just because of the theme of the crossover with the threats and stuff and their perspective on it. But what I can say is from the language, the wording, the insults, the complaining, I wouldn't say Lady Dalton is a lady by any means, just a female, nothing more, nothing less. But regardless, that individual, and even a person called Sam, Fireman Sam, Sammy the Seal, whatever, they keep coming back on their hands and knees. Obviously a key pattern which I've noticed with time when it comes to a range of different impetuous, egocentric humans that have got somewhat of an obsession with me, constantly complaining, whinging and whining and not actually contributing much to the channel at all. Yeah, is what it is, but they keep coming back. Is it because they can't control themselves? Is it because they're obsessed with me? Or they've come to that realization, the reality is there is only one individual constantly covering this case on YouTube, which is my channel. Whether the coverage is good or bad, they need their daily fix of coverage on the case, so they come to me. Am I a dealer? Not from what I'm aware of. But in terms of all the claims made about me, it'll probably get added to the list. If people didn't know, there was a comment last night by someone saying, the way you talk in third person, you sound like Donald Trump. Well, I guess I need to get my suit and tie ready for the elections. Maybe Warlike Ref will become the next president of the United States, and I'm sure some people will be shitting themselves already. I guess it is what it is. We'll see what happens with time, won't we? But at the end of the day, Lady Dalton, or Lady Karen, however you go by the names, there is still time upon this earth, upon this planet, upon your life to change as a human for the better, to change your mindset, your perceptions and outlook on things. You can still make a choice to become a better human, but that's only if you want to. As of right now, more pressing matters keep going on. Because some other areas, Madison Rawling video, I mean, it's worth looking at for sure, but let's give it a day or two just for things to cool off just a little bit, so things aren't as tense. Bit more of a casual video today, but as a final conclusion, the act of burying a body can lead to worse outcomes for everyone in a case from the family and friends' perspective. delayed feelings, more emotions, more uncertainty, more unrest, closure, wanting in finding the person, and then the closure of whether dead or alive, and then the closure of the justice system. Like a 2-3 stage thing that would be worse, wouldn't it? And also worse for anyone involved, the bad people, because it's just over their head, looming about, dragging on and on and on. Are they safe? Are they not? Will it ever be resolved? Who knows? Got to look over your shoulder all the time. Uncomfortable for them too. And more chances of it tracing back to where Noah was last seen, more chances of things being found at the house. With the heavy resources being used as well in a missing person case, a lot more goes about than just a being found on a highway. There might be a level of intensity and pushing further for a missing person case than simply finding an individual on the highway. Just my analysis, that's all. And last but not least, the concept of threats and messages and what people have said online, especially those who have put their foot into the door when they weren't actually involved in the case to begin with. They shouldn't really be doing that, to be honest. And the specific threats as well are very questionable, because there could be some truth within those threats and warnings. You never know from either side. And just general threats. Those that may have not been in the limelight as much, like Colton, and yet Colton has threatened people, right? I mean, I don't know how true it is, but like if Carter or Avery have been harassed in different ways and have been attacked in real life and the property being damaged, you could understand why they might retaliate back, because it's getting to them whether they're responsible or not. A lot more intensity on them, more pressuring situations, higher chances of saying something maybe they don't mean or what they shouldn't say, because they bottle it up, boils over and it explodes maybe. But anyone else that's not directly in the case, or could be in the case but hasn't had all the spotlight or blame aimed at them, they're really in no position to be threatening. But they make the choice to threaten, you need to look at it a lot closer. So we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night for now.